Procedural errors, part 1. So, how we define the endodontic success actually? It's by historical endodontic triad that includes sterilization, debridement, apical seal. When it comes to contemporary triad, it includes accurate diagnosis, thorough knowledge about the anatomy, and complete debridement. The But before going into that, like in any other field of dentistry, a clinician may face unwanted situations during the root canal treatment, which can affect the prognosis of endodontic therapy. These procedural accidents are collectively termed as endodontic mishaps. So, the accurate diagnosis, proper case selection, and adherence to basic principles of endodontic therapy may prevent the occurrence of procedural accidents. But if any endodontic mishap occurs, please inform the patient about the incidence and nature of it and the procedures to correct the mishap, the alternative treatment options, of course, last but not least, the prognosis of the affected tooth. Endodontic mishaps may have dental-legal consequences also. That's why the prevention is the best option both for patient as well as the dentist. The knowledge of the etiological factors involved in these endodontic mishaps are mandatory for their prevention. So, recognition of a procedural accident itself is the first step in the management. Let comes to know about the causes of endodontic failure, which is classified by Grossman as poor diagnosis, poor prognosis, technical difficulties, and careless treatment. And according to the Washington study, it is because of apical percolation, operative errors, and errors in case selection. And Crump has described it as perforation, obliteration of the canals, overfilled canals, missed root canals, periodontal disease, and improper and inadequate access, split, and trauma. These are the various aspects where endodontic mishaps commonly occurs. Radiographs, anesthesia, radiographs misdiagnosis, of course, not reading the preoperative properly, radiograph, not looking for any looking about the curvature of the canal, presence of root canals, presence of the number of the roots, root curvatures, extra roots or extra canals. All this, if you don't read in the preoperative radiograph, it will definitely lead to a mishap. So, while giving anesthesia, also one must be very careful. And isolation, access, instrumentation, irrigation, obturation, flare ups, and surgical part of the endodontic therapy are the commonest areas. How we define the endodontic mishap? It's an unfortunate occurrence that happens during the treatment, and some incidences will owe to inattention, and some are totally unpredictable. The three basic steps in managing a mishap are recognition, correction, and re-evaluation of the prognosis. How can we prevent these mishaps? By knowing the literature completely, by having the experience and self-evaluation. Access related mishaps, or first one, foremost one, is treating a wrong tooth. This is purely because of the misdiagnosis by the dentist, and also wrong placement of the rubber dam, or not on the affected tooth but a sound tooth, or by the next secondary chief complaint tooth. So, recognition, definitely the patient will have sustained symptoms even after your treatment, and also after removal of the rubber dam, you will definitely locate the correct tooth. The correction, of course, you have to treat both the teeth which is affected and which is a wrongly diagnosed tooth. And these are some commonest errors that occurs during the access cavity preparation. If you see the first pick under anterior tooth, the file is going at an angle. That is because of incomplete deroofment of the pulp chamber. If you completely remove the roof of the pulp chamber, like in the second pick, the file will go straight angle into the canal. And if you see the posterior tooth also, if you don't remove the pulp chamber completely, that will lead to inadequate access into the cavity, like under extended access, which will definitely leads to a missed canal, because there is no ability to locate all the canals. Of course, if you don't locate it, you can't debride it properly. If you don't debride it, you can't obturate it properly. Then overextended access. See this picture under overextended, there is no dentin left out. So how can we expect a post-endodontic restoration to retain such tooth? It's very difficult. Also, it is ready to undergo a fracture during the mastication. Remember always, the walls of the access cavity must be convergent while doing an access. This is to preserve the marginal integrity. And the most commonly seen mishap is or missed canals. This can contribute to endodontic failure because they hold the tissue debris, bacteria, and other irritants. So, a tooth should be retreated first non-surgically, and if still the failure exists or persists, then we have to go for surgical method or procedure. Etiology is mainly due to lack of thorough knowledge of presence of number of roots, root canals, and their variations, their configurations, etc. And of course, second one is inadequate access cavity preparation or underextended. So what is the common will miss almost most commonly canals or missed canals or maxillary premolars, where we can expect 3 canals, mesobuccal, distobuccal, and palatal, but we only always look for 2, buccal and palatal, that's all. So we are going to miss it, a canal. And maxillary first molars, in which 75 to 80% will have MB2 canal, but we always look for only 3, MB, DB, and palatal. And mandibular premolar, which is endodontics enigma, which have always a complex root canal anatomy there, like 1-2 configuration, 2-1 configuration, 1-1 or 2-1-2 configuration, etc. So if you don't realize this, you're going to miss a canal. And mandibular molars, which can have a middle mesial canal, a distal, extra distal canal, etc. So how can we locate this missed canals or identify this missed canals? We have first one is you should have an anatomic familiarity, thorough knowledge, and we should have a purse with you, armamentarium, and we have to take a number of good radiographs, clear radiographs at different horizontal angulations, and we should have good illumination and magnification. Therefore, we can use microscopes and endoscopes and magnifying loops, of course. Then of course there is an recent advances like digital radiography, where you can take a tooth at all the 360 degrees angulation. So and we have ultrasonic tips like ProRoot tips, micro openers to locate the orifices of the root canals, especially in calcified teeth. And we have methylene blue like dyes to detect or to read the road map. So, and if we use a sodium hypochlorite after thorough cleaning and shaping, the pulp chamber, if you fill the pulp chamber with the sodium hypochlorite, the bubbles will start appear if at all any residual tissue present in a missed canal or any residual chelator like EDTA present in the prepared canal. This test, that's how we can detect a missed canal. This test is called Champagne test. And we have fluorescent dyes to detect the missed canals. So next one is damage to the existing restoration. If at all the patient comes with a porcelain full veneer or PFM crown, etc., any repair, minor repairs can be repaired by bonding composite. Though it's not a long, there's no longevity for this, but it can be repaired like that, because removal of as such the full veneer crown or PFM, it can cause damage to the existing restoration as well as to the tooth. Otherwise, we can go for a prevention like we can use Justman and Krell technique for removal of the provisional crown, or else prevent the crazing of the porcelain, or prevent the aspiration of the crown by the patient, etc. Or else we can do one thing by we can do the access through the full veneer crown itself by using transmetal burrs. But only thing is we should know we should read the pre-operative radiograph thoroughly to identify the angulation of the root and presence of number of root canals. And perforations, these are the second most commonly seen mishap during access cavity preparation. This can be of two types. First one is the perforation can occur above periodontal attachment or below or into the periodontal attachment or ligament. So if it occurs above the periodontal attachment, like in first picture, you can see the oozing of saliva into the access cavity from the oral cavity. Second one, if you use irrigants like hypo or saline or EDTA, the patient will tell the irrigant is coming into the oral cavity and he can feel that unpleasant odor. So it can leak out from the tooth into the oral cavity or saliva from the oral cavity into the access cavity. So this is the indication of the perforation above your PDL attachment. Second pic shows See, this is a file, except it's not going into the distal canal. Instead of that, it's going into the periodontal ligament, periodontal tissues, if you see clearly. This is below the PDL attachment. Perforation occurred below the PDL attachment. The arrow itself is showing you where the perforation occurred. And you have one more is supracrustal perforation. This is the site of the perforation where it occurred, and this how you can repair by placing biocompatible perforation repair materials. And lateral root perforation, this can be detected by using a paper point, by placing into the root canal. It will be stained with the blood. That's how you can assess there is a perforation inside. If the repair is favorable, the defect is located at or above the crustal bone level. Then only the defect can be repaired with the restorative materials. And also periodontal curettage must be followed after the placement of a material to remove the excess of it, and which is followed by the placement of a full crown, but the margin should extend beyond the or below the defect. And perforations into the periodontal ligament, they can be repaired again by using repair materials. The common materials are used are Cavate, GIC, MTA, amalgam, tricalcium phosphate, OPP, calcium hydroxide paste, Gatapacha, Super EBA, and hemostatic agents like gel foam. And prognosis, generally their prognosis is poor, but it depends mainly on the factors like location of the perforation, as we discussed, above the crest of bone level or below the level or into the periodontal attachment, etc. And the time lapse between the perforation occurred till the repair of the perforation. If the time lapse is more, definitely the prognosis is poor. So you have to seal then and there itself, means in the same appointment where the perforation occurred, the same appointment you had to seal or repair the perforation with the materials. If it is inaccessible area, we can't seal properly, then prognosis definitely is poor. Prevention definitely depends upon thorough examination, reading of the preoperative radiographs. And remember, your burr alignment always must be parallel to the long axis or along the long axis of the tooth. Identify the location or classification masses present in the pulp chamber, see the canal curvature, see the number of roots, etc. on the radiograph itself. Last one is a crown fracture. When do the crown will fracture while doing the access cavity? First of all, if there is a gross amount of more amount of caries inside the access cavity, while removing the caries itself, the access cavity becomes weakened by loss of the sound dentin. Then definitely the tooth may go for a crown may go for fracture, or else there must be a pre-existing crack or infection. This can be directly visible by fracturing a tooth piece or coming out like that. How can you prevent that? Use a temporary band or crown and relieve the tooth from the occlusion. Treatment, if there is a presence of vertical root fracture, definitely it goes for extraction, or else if only a part of parcel like a cusp is fractured from the crown, you can build it the cusp using a temporary band or circumferential band, then you have to go for a crown. So that ends our procedural errors part 1. See you in the next class. Thank you.